the Premier League title race is looking right now. And after years of City just winning it and winning it, there's real hope that this is going to be competitive, not just between two teams, but three or more. So let's sort out the contenders from the pretenders. So let's take a look at the Premier League table, and here is the reason for all the excitement and optimism. Look at this cluster. Look how tight these teams are. 13 games played, roughly a third of the way through the season. You've got Arsenal top of the league, City just behind them, Liverpool, Villa, Tottenham all within shouting distance. Man United just 2 wins off the top, and they've got 5 and 6. It's not impossible, despite how poorly they are playing. Everybody is looking at this title race now. Everybody's looking at this table and thinking anything could be possible. So we need to establish whether or not that's actually true for most of these teams. So the first step here is to establish a challenging capacity. And to do that, I'm going to ask a very simple question. Are these teams capable of racking up 85 points or more? If they are, I think they're in the title race. If they can't, I don't think they are. Why 85? Well, it's quite simple, really. Over the last 7 seasons, the lowest points tally that has won the Premier League is 86 points. And that was Manchester City in a bit of a down year for the rest of the teams. So 86 is the lowest possible tally that can win the title in the last 7 years. That means that you are going to need roughly that amount or more this season with these teams looking this strong. Or if you want to go a little bit more rudimentary, let's say we're a third of the way through the season with 13 games played. If you times these figures by 3, you get somewhere between 84 and 90 points. So let's just call it 85, a nice loose target, and let's go through these clubs and establish whether or not they can meet that target or they can't. So earlier on, I saw John McKenzie prowling the Tifo corridors, and he said, "Sam, I heard you were doing a video on title challenges." And I said, "Yes, John, I am." I didn't think he'd seen me. He said, "I think you should use underlying numbers. That's a good place to start." And because I'm scared of John, that's exactly what I'm going to do. So we have a nice chart here of expected goals versus expected goals against. It's actually measuring last season to this season. That's what the streak means. But ignore that for now. Just look at where the badges are placed. We're going to live almost exclusively in the top right quadrant. This here on the bottom is a descending scale for XGA, expected goals against. The further across to the right you are, the fewer chances you are conceding. And this is an ascending scale for XG, expected goals. The further up you are, the more potent your attack is. So really, this is where you want to be. Top right, best of both worlds. I say this, I'm going to have to start with Manchester United, who are existing just outside of this quadrant, but we do need to address it because one way or another, they've become the form team in the league. They have won 5 games from 6, they're 15 points from 18. It's the best form over a 6-game spell that anyone in the league can offer, and no one is exactly sure why or how this is happening. Now, lucky wins or not, underlying numbers or not, one thing I want to do here is just go back to a more traditional method and go back to the table and point out their goal difference here of 0. This is like the original underlying number, the goal difference figure. And they look like a little bit of an imposter in this scenario here. Everybody's in the plus except United, who are on 0, thanks to a 3-0 win against Everton over the weekend. They were minus all the way up until this point. What does that mean? It means that they're winning games by very fine margins. And if you live on the razor edge of football like that, it's probably not sustainable that you can win enough games to get to 85 points. So Manchester United, with 4 1-0 wins against bottom half teams or middling teams in the Premier League, are not impressing us at the moment. And despite the fact that they are only 6 points away from top, we're not quite willing to enter them into this conversation. And I'm not sure Manchester United fans would disagree with that assertion. Right, let's go back to the top right quadrant here properly. And first of all, Everton, I mean, the underlying numbers look good. And that's positive for their survival hopes, but obviously they're in the relegation zone. They're not going to be winning the title. Chelsea, they're right here. You know, there's a prevailing theory that Chelsea are actually quite good. And whether or not you believe that or not, look, they're going to need 2.76 points per game from here to hit 85. Not even Manchester City and Arsenal can really match that. So I think the dream of Chelsea being in this title race is well gone. They have 16 points from 13 games. And the same can be said for Brentford. Good underlying numbers, impressive team, 16 points from 13. It's not going to happen. Next, we'll go to Brighton. Good underlying numbers again, but look, 1.6 points per game last season in their best ever Premier League campaign. From this point to get to 85 points, they would need 2.52 points per game while juggling a European schedule. Again, I'm just going to call it unrealistic. Next up, we're going to Newcastle. Last season, 1.86 points per game got them into the top 4, a points total of 71. From the point they are right now, they would need a points per game average of 2.48 to hit 85 points. They have a European Cup campaign to manage, they have a domestic cup campaign to manage, they have one of the most hideous injury lists we've seen this season. I'm not going to disrespect Newcastle, they are a very good team, but they already have a lot to do and a lot to juggle with, so I'm going to say it's unrealistic as well. Now, I keep mentioning points per game with these teams, and you might think that's not a particularly romantic way to think about a title race, but a third of the way into the season, this is the consideration you have to give. Like, I'm talking about 2.5, maybe 2.8 points per game as a variation for these clubs. That is an incredible rate, an incredible standard you have to set. The sort of standard that really we've only seen Manchester City set in the last 5 years, and Liverpool when they won the title. Like, it's really hard. And so while you cannot win the title by the end of November, you can certainly take yourself out of contention to do so by dropping too many points and leaving yourself too much to do. Okay, let's go to Tottenham Hotspur in 5th place. And maybe this position looks a bit different if they'd have beaten Villa at the weekend. Maybe so, maybe not. But already we've got a bunch of injuries here that are starting to threaten to derail Tottenham's season. But if you watch the game on Sunday, any team that's built like this, missing so many key players that can give Villa the runaround for 35 minutes until Bentancur gets injured as well, I think gives you serious belief in Ange Postecoglou. It gives you serious belief that his system can engineer chances and elevate the level of this squad. Now, that doesn't mean that they're in title contention, or possibly doesn't, but it does mean that despite losing like literally half their team already, they're not out of this race for the top 4. They're not out of European contention. They can still have a really strong season, because if this team can give Villa the runaround, then pretty much anything is possible. Unfortunately, again, that standard we're trying to hit, it's probably not going to be it. Now in 4th place is Aston Villa. Here, 2 points off top. I mean, it's looking really healthy here. Good goal difference, amazing goals scored. Helps when you win games 4 and 6-1 quite consistently. But for Villa, there are 2 issues facing them here. First of all, it's the depth issue, which is similar to Spurs. Villa haven't suffered bad injuries so far this season, although they did start the season without 3 or 4 key players. But if they were to lose a couple of key men, they probably would drop off again. And then there's the Newcastle conundrum of Villa also have a European campaign to contend with. It may not kick back in again until February or March, so it can kind of be put on ice over the Christmas period. But when the games come thick and fast in March, things might start to change. So there's 2 reasons why Villa will just need to hold their horses a little bit on the title race. Although I'm sure you've all seen the year-long calendar table, and Villa were right in amongst it with Arsenal and City. Okay, in 3rd place is Liverpool, and now it feels like we're getting somewhere. The most high-powered attack in the Premier League. Goals win games. Liverpool score loads of goals. It really is that simple sometimes. It's no wonder they're right in this race. Jurgen Klopp has done a great job of reimagining this Liverpool team in a very short space of time and completely rebuilding this midfield. We've got Alexis McAllister now key in the middle. We've got Trent dropping in here to make a temporary back 3 if Tsimikas or Robertson is there. McAllister and Trent joining in the pivot, and then you've got this shape here, the 3-2-4-1 that we saw with Manchester City last season. Salah is spending quite a lot of time wide. It's not great for him in terms of goals, but he's a really important part of this team still. Trent is playing these wonderful switch passes over to Diaz or Jota on the left-hand side. Darwin is causing absolute chaos up here, and Szoboszlai has become one of the most important players on the ball and off the ball that the Premier League has to offer. This looks like a pretty sustainable team. Yes, they've got a European calendar to consider as well, but they're in the Europa League and they don't seem to care about it that much. And that's fair enough, right? If you've got a title race on, then you can put Thursday to one side. They rotate the team heavily. They don't really have like a dual responsibility. And of course, Van Dijk is back to his best. Alisson might be the best goalkeeper in the world. Salah's still one of the best forwards in the world. There's world-class quality all across this team. They score tons of goals. They're amazing at home. This feels repeatable. Liverpool are in this title race, no doubt. Now moving up to 2nd in the table, we have Manchester City on 29 points. Obviously, they're there or thereabouts. They're an excellent team. They are the reigning champions. And you look at the team and you can't really fault it, to be honest with you. I mean, Erling Haaland is the fastest player ever to 50 Premier League goals. I'm not telling anyone anything new to say that he is absolutely amazing. Obviously, Rodri is probably the best central midfielder in the world, but there's some new elements to this team as well, which are really interesting. Doku on the left-hand side, dribbling and taking on fullbacks and getting those 1v1 scenarios is brilliant. You've got Alvarez joining Haaland and getting closer to him and scoring and assisting goals, taking set pieces brilliantly. Rodri, Bernardo, still brilliant. Walker and Akanji sharing this role. Foden's emergence on the right-hand side, and we cannot forget about this guy. Sorry, Alvarez, I'm just going to put you over here for a second, no disrespect, but Kevin De Bruyne is going to return at some point. Arguably the best footballer in the Premier League when he's fit. Bad hamstring injury, will return soon. If he is here for the run-in, everybody is in trouble. And finally, top of the table as it stands is Arsenal. They are first at this stage of the season once again. I hope that doesn't bring back any sore memories for anybody. But it's a new slate and it's a new season, and Arsenal were top, and there's reasons to be excited. 30 points from 13 games is a brilliant total to set, and this column here is the most interesting one. Goals allowed, a measly 10. Arsenal are defensively exceptional this season. Right, let's go back to our old friend, the graph, one more time, just to hammer this home. Here is Arsenal as far along the bottom axis as you can be. 0.7, 0.8 XGA per game. This is exceptional. It's potentially historic. Like, if this carries on, if this sustains through the rest of the season, we're talking about potentially one of the best defences the Premier League has ever actually seen. With William Saliba at the back and brilliant pressing in midfield and the presence of Declan Rice, like, they are so hard to play against. And while they've lost a bit in attack, clearly there's a big difference between Liverpool and Arsenal here in terms of attacking numbers. Defensively, Arsenal are brilliant. They are so good. They're so hard to break down and so hard to play against. Now, they have managed to get to this point despite juggling quite a few injuries, really, that have disrupted them a lot. Gabriel Jesus here has missed time. He's the key striker. Martinelli as well, and Martin Odegaard. You've lost 3 players there for different sections of the season so far, which has disrupted things. And you would say generally that if those 3 players are on the pitch, Arsenal are far more likely to win games. They have been, as a result of this, a little bit dry creatively in the centre of the pitch. Things haven't quite clicked yet. There's been a different cast alongside Declan Rice quite often, and that has meant that they've been very reliant on Benjamin White and Bukayo Saka and this general combination, which is fine because they get along really well and they're really effective at playing together. But it's been a bit much. I'd like to see a little bit more diversification from Arsenal's attack, if possible. But underpinning it all, and meaning that it doesn't really matter, is that William Saliba is just running around here, just dealing with absolutely everything. He might be the best centre-back in the league, or at least by the end of the season, we might be calling him that. So, 3 exceptional teams here, all trying to win the title in very different ways. Will it be Arsenal's mean defence? Will it be Liverpool's prolific attack? Or will it be Man City's best of both worlds approach? Let us know in the comments what you think. Which of these 3 distinctly different styles will prevail?
If you like this video, please consider subscribing to the channel. The Athletic is home to some of the world's best sports journalists, including David Ornstein, Daniel Taylor, Ollie Kay, Amy Lawrence and Rafa Honigstein. With the latest transfer news and insight on every Premier League football story that matters, theathletic.com puts you inside football. And you can try it for free now for 30 days. See the link in the description.